If you're seriously considering ending your relationship, I am here to pressure you to stay at all costs. Of course, I know that some relationships are particularly different, especially those that involves, abuse or a chaotic pattern of harm. Of course, those type needs to end. But for many couple, what is needed isn't an exit strategy. It is a reset strategy. So before you make that permanent decision on temporary circumstances, I am asking you to just, you know, make a critical shift in your perspective and behavior. And so you may be asking, so what are those shifts that I need to make? Shift number one, shift from frustration to curiosity. You see, when you are frustrated, your default question is, what's wrong with him? Or what's wrong with them? This question assumes that the problem is external and doesn't have anything to do with you. Now, it positions you as a victim rather than a villain. I want you to shift to curiosity mode by asking the question differently. So these questions that you need to begin to ask are, what does my spouse need that I may not be seeing or providing him or her? What pattern have we established in our relationship together that has kept us or keep producing this kind of outcome that we are presently experiencing? What might be happening beneath the surface behavior, you know, that I find very frustrating? See, and then you can also ask yourself, how might my spouse be experiencing this situation differently than I presently am? I'm going to give you an example. In one of my counseling section, I worked with a couple where the wife was frustrated by her husband's constant emotional withdrawal. Her question to me was, what's wrong with him? Why won't he just open up to me? I helped her to shift that to a curiosity discovery mode. And then when she did that, she discovered that she had grown up in an environment where emotional expression was criticized as weakness. So in response, her husband was not rejecting her, but he has learned to protect himself from such outbursts. And so he kept to himself. So understanding this, immediately won't solve the whole problem, but you see, it will transform your approach to any conflict that you have in your marriage, from accusation to compassionate invitation into the word of your partner. And that will make a whole lot of difference, I must tell you. So how do you apply this to your day-to-day relational life? Curiosity doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior. No, it means seeking to understand the full picture before drawing conclusions. True, the second shift that you need to make is shift from blame to ownership. Shift from blame to ownership. This is where most people get defensive. So I want you to stay with me on this. You see, when relationship deteriorates, both both parties in the relationship contribute negatively to that cycle. Maybe not on equal proportion, but both played a role in it. So love doesn't drift, or love does not thrive, I mean to say, in an environment of constant accusation. It grows through self-awareness and personal accountability. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to ask yourself some, uncomfortable questions. I want you to ask yourself some uncomfortable questions. And some of those questions are, what has my tone in addressing this situation been like? Have I been speaking from the place of respect, or have I allowed content to creep into my voice? What have I stopped doing? What gesture, what words, what actions did I used to offer freely before that my spouse feel loved, or that made my spouse feel loved, valued, and desired, that I've stopped doing? How have I contributed to the distance between the two of us? Have I withdrawn emotionally? Have I become more critical? Have I stopped initiating those connections that I once used to initiate before? What pattern do I repeat? Do I usually shut down during conflict? Do I escalate unnecessarily? Do I dismiss their concern without thinking twice about it? You see, sometimes the breakthrough that you are desperately searching for is just waiting beneath the apology that you haven't given yet. Yes, it's waiting for just the apology that you have not given yet. You see, this can send some kind of us, sense us to think into different ways that we may have, we may have. I can sense in some of you what you're thinking right now, what you don't understand, what he did. You say you are right. You are very right. I don't know the specific of your stories, or the specific of your story, but I do know this for sure, that waiting for your spouse to take the first step towards reconciliation can keep you stuck for years. You see, someone have to take the first step, and that someone have to choose humility over pride. And I want that person to be you. Not because you are accepting all the blame, but because you are refusing to let pride to destroy the love that remains in your marriage. The third shift that I want you to make is shift from distance to connection. Shift from distance to connection. When relationships are severely damaged, the gap between you and your partner, you know, will feel impossibly wide. The thought of breathing it and bridging that gap, will feel overwhelming. I can tell you that for free. So, but here is what I want you to understand. You see, you don't rebuild connection through grand gesture or dramatic declarations. No, you don't do that. You rebuild trust or connection through small but constant and intentional act of connection. So the practical strategy that you can employ is, or are these, I'm going to give you a couple of them. One, to a 10-minute heart-to-heart talk with no phones, no television, no distraction, just both of you together. Take turns sharing one thing about your day that was meaningful, that was challenging, and that brought you joy. You see, the goal is not to solve a problem here. It is just to stay connected. Just want you to stay connected to each other's inner world, to feel and to understand what they are going through. Another thing you need to do is affectionate touch without an agenda. Affectionate touch without an agenda. Hold hands while watching television. Kiss goodbye in the morning with no intention, but just creating a routine. Hug for at least 20 minutes, long enough for oxytocin to, be released in your system, and then have physical affection that doesn't lead necessarily to sexual expectations, but rebuild trust and intimacy. You know, you need to also reconnect spiritually. And so, how do you now try to reconnect spiritually? You need to do that by praying together, even if it feels awkward initially. You need to learn to read devotionals or scriptures together. Attend a faith community together, go to church, go for church programs, go for religious programs, together. Express gratitude to God for one another, even in small things. Another thing you can do is to have verbal appreciation. Learn to say thank you for ordinary contributions. And when you are expressing those thank you, express the appreciation in a specific manner and tune. Don't just say thank you for dinner. I want you to say things that you are really happy about, like thank you for making dinner for me even though you had a long day. Another thing you can also do is to compliment something about your spouse daily. I know this can be difficult, but you need to learn. These small, little things, may seem insignificant at the moment, when you are dealing with a major issue. But I want you to remember that erosion does not happen gradually. They happen in small moments. So if you then want to rebuild, that rebuilding needs to also happen in the same way in bits and pieces. So trust is rebuilt when you keep one promise at a time. Intimacy is restored by one vulnerable conversation at a time. Connection deepens by one intentional moment at a time. So I want you to reflect on this till I come again in the next episode. My name is Solomon Arasa. See you on the next one.